Hola, soy Patricia Gomez, bienvenidos. Hoy en adelante veremos segundas partes de qué es el ser hispano, What is Hispanic, un proyecto de la Universidad Marquette. También la continuación del programa de enseñanza por Internet del Distrito Escolar de Racine y una segunda parte de la conversación con Amarildo Mario Ademaj, un estudiante de la Escuela de Medicina de la Universidad de Wisconsin, quien inicia un proyecto para ayudar a los latinos en aspectos de salud. El Museo Haggerty de Marquette se encuentra preparando una exhibición titulada What is Hispanic. La exhibición se inaugurará en agosto del 2015. Scott Dale, un profesor de español de esta universidad, se encuentra seleccionando los trabajos que incluyen piezas de Salvador Dalí, Pablo Picasso y Diego Rivera. Acompáñenos en esta segunda parte de la visita a Marquette que realizó Johnny Muñoz.
The title, What is Hispanic, is basically a springboard to the question, what is Hispanic? What do we mean when we use the term Hispanic? The first step was convincing the director of the museum to support my project. And what that meant was, first I wrote a proposal, and my proposal was basically, I would like to look at all of the art in the museum. I want to look at every piece of art in the museum, and that is here in the vault, basically, and also in other areas of the museum. So I wanted access to the museum's collection. After gaining access and after getting permission from the director, what I did is I tried to identify all the pieces that were actually created by artists of Hispanic origin. So after looking at those pieces, I chose 30 of the most representative pieces, that is, the 30 pieces that I thought would be most interesting to the viewers.
Over the past summer, we spent a lot of time going through the collection and deciding which pieces he would include in the catalog and the exhibition. And now he has a long process of writing. So this entire project will be about 2 years in the making.
The reason why the title of the exhibition is a question is because it's also a question for me. I have been having these discussions and debates with colleagues, friends, and family members for several years. And my question is are there any distinct cultural components about Hispanic identity? What makes you Hispanic and your friend not Hispanic? Does the language element define you? Does the fact that you speak Spanish, is that what makes you Hispanic? Or are there other cultural components or values or perspectives of the world? So the question for me was actually meaningful because I have yet to meet the person who has a clear answer to the question, what is Hispanic? Hispanic is a very slippery term. If we go to Mexico, Spain, Southern California, or Peru, I think if we ask the question, what is Hispanic? I think what we'll learn is that Hispanic means different things for different people. So when people come through the door to the exhibit and they see the title, What is Hispanic? I think they'll be asking themselves the same question. They might think they have a clear understanding of what Hispanic is, but I think if we revisit the question, it's going to stimulate a lot of debate. I think in the end, people from all over the world, we're all human beings and we share many values that are similar. But I'm asking the question, what are some of the unique, if there are any, unique components of Hispanic cultures, apart from the language, of course. So after identifying approximately 125 art pieces by artists of Hispanic origin, what I decided to do was to select approximately 30 of those 125 because first I had limitations of space for the exhibits. I only had enough room for about 30 pieces. So I decided to choose pieces that first came from artists from all over the world, so we had a good geographic representation. Second, I wanted to have a good variety of themes. So I chose works that suggested or discussed in visual form themes such as race, family, identity, work, religion, masculinity, femininity, childhood, etc. In other words, I wanted about 30 pieces that had a very ample spectrum of topics that could suggest main values of Hispanic communities. Between now and the opening of the exhibit, what I'm doing is I'm writing the text for the catalog. So I'm going to prepare a bilingual catalog in both English and Spanish, and the text will give an introduction to each piece. It'll also discuss the background of the artist and perhaps suggest what the subject matter of the piece might be. That's going to take probably 3 or 4 months, and the catalog will be produced when the exhibit opens, and that will be available to all viewers who come to the museum. The Haggerty Museum of Art at Marquette is a jewel. Surprisingly, most people in Milwaukee, and even at Marquette, are unaware of all the great art that's here. So the artwork here is absolutely amazing in that it spans various centuries, geographical borders, styles. It has it all.
We have been here almost 30 years, and like I said, we're completely open for the community, the entire public. We work not only with Marquette students, but we work with all sorts of school-age children. We work with MPS, and we're here for the whole community.
It is our goal that the exhibit be viewed by as many people as possible, because I really think that this exhibit has a lot of meaning to it, socially, culturally, and I hope that it's very successful. I am very hopeful.
El cuarteto se llama La Catrina y se llama así por la famosa ilustración de José Guadalupe Posada, La Catrina.
Teníamos primero 4 personas de México. 3 de nosotros terminamos de estudiar en el Conservatorio de las Rosas en Morelia. Y primero el otro violinista que tocaba con nosotros regresó a México, y luego tuvimos un violinista de Puerto Rico, y luego el chelista que tocó con nosotros por varios años se regresa a México, y tenemos a otro violonchelista, César Martínez Burguet, que es de Oaxaca.
Realmente tocamos una gran variedad de música, no se podría decir que tocamos un solo tipo. Entonces, realmente tocamos tanto música europea como música latinoamericana seria, como es el cuarteto de Ginastera. Nuestro plan inmediato es reclutar muchos alumnos de cuerdas que estén interesados en estudiar a nivel licenciatura, tanto educación musical como ejecución, y formar una orquesta sinfónica que obviamente no se puede hacer sin una fuerte sección de cuerdas.
Realmente somos un cuarteto muy joven. Tenemos prácticamente casi 4 años tocando conciertos en todo Estados Unidos y México principalmente. Yo creo que como todo cuarteto aspira algún día a llegar a ser un cuarteto que esté consolidado y que todo el mundo sepa que son una entidad. Entonces, personalmente espero yo que en los siguientes 10 años podamos ser un grupo que se sepa que representa la música latinoamericana, pero llegar a un nivel como el Cuarteto Cronos.
El Distrito Escolar de Racine está implementando un programa educativo llamado Virtual Learning o aprendizaje en línea. Esta nueva forma de educación que convierte al distrito en uno de sus pioneros exigirá mayor responsabilidad de parte de los estudiantes. Veamos esta segunda parte de la historia de Johnny Muñoz.
When will you be here at Horlick to take your final exam then?
8 a.m. would work. I signed up for the virtual learning because I have a full schedule of IB courses next year, and it's a 5-week course over the summer.
One of the big advantages is that the students can work on their school work at any time during the day from essentially any location that has the internet. And so they're able to log in at 2 o'clock in the morning if that's what their schedule entails, and they need to work at a different time that doesn't work during the school day. They're able to do a lot of that from home or from an alternative site.
The hardest part is there's so many different moving pieces and so many different policies that have to be kind of removed from their setting, say a policy on attendance or a policy on grading or a policy on which students can have access to an online course. All those different policies come into play, and school districts have in their face-to-face model all those things figured out. The online world, because of its flexible nature, changes all that. And so each of those policies has to be removed from its context. We have to look at it and say, okay, here's how we're going to do it in the online world, but still honor what's happening in the face-to-face world.
It wasn't too difficult. I really enjoyed that it was on your own pace, so you could work on it in the morning or at night whenever your free time was.
Y si no entiendes la lección la primera vez, puedes repetirlas. Y eso es más fácil para mí. Y las clases son en la computadora, y las puedo hacer en mi casa y puedo hacer mi horario donde las puedo hacer.
El mayor obstáculo es la primer clase que toman. En la primer clase virtual aprenden que necesitan dedicarle tiempo, casi tanto tiempo como cuando están en clase. Entonces los estudiantes necesitan entender que es disciplina, que requiere prestarle atención, y a veces creo que desmerece un poquito el sentido de clases virtuales, pensando que lo van a hacer en 5 minutos y pasó. No, requiere tiempo, y muchos de estos chicos abandonan las clases porque no le dedican el tiempo suficiente. Hemos visto que con la mayoría de los estudiantes, cuando pasan la primera clase con éxito, las demás clases siguen muy bien.
That's probably the biggest adjustment for a student, is learning to plan ahead, work ahead, and formulate their questions to their teachers so that they get work completed on time and they get the answers that they need.
Si estamos hablando de la escuela secundaria, son clases semestrales. Estas clases semestrales se pueden realizar en 16 semanas. Por supuesto, si el estudiante decide terminar el módulo, porque cada módulo es una cierta cantidad de capítulos, y dar el examen antes porque está preparado, se puede hacer perfectamente. En el caso de estudiantes que tienen algún inconveniente de salud o de tiempo, lo pueden extender. Es decir, los módulos son flexibles en tal forma que se pueden adaptar al nivel del estudiante y a la capacidad de trabajo. Se pueden acortar o se pueden extender.
Yeah, that question of access and equity is always one that school districts who are planning to offer virtual learning have to keep in mind. And our answer so far is we always try to make sure that we have enough opportunities at the school building for students if they don't have internet access at home. But we also have used the public library, we have used some of the community centers, we have used even restaurants where there is Wi-Fi access at these locations, and students are able to use those locations as well. But in my mind, that still is not enough. Even with having community resources available to students, that's not always convenient. And the best convenience is at home. in terms of time and flexibility. So that's something that the district is working hard to overcome in terms of planning and budgeting, and we're step by step getting closer to that.
It's been growing, and it's going to continue to grow. We started off about 3 years ago, and I had about 50 kids on my roster, and we've done more than triple that over the past 3 years, and I see that that's just going to keep on growing and growing and growing, because the need for these courses and to provide alternative methods of education for these kids is just going to keep on going up, that this program isn't going to have any problem in the near future. It's going to be something that's just going to continue to grow.
Es una excelente oportunidad que antes no teníamos. Está creciendo cada año. Realmente un gran paso adelante para los chicos que quieren aumentar su conocimiento, no solo en español, que es mi materia, sino en cualquier otra materia, y acelerar en su propio tiempo. Las clases son difíciles algunas, pero al nivel que los estudiantes pueden completar.
I think I'm a storyteller. I consider myself a reporter, curious, inquisitive. Ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to know what was going on. I was a voracious reader. I cared about the neighborhood. I wanted to know what was going on. I wrote for the high school newspaper when I was in high school. So I think I've been a storyteller all along. The reason I got into journalism, even in high school, was because my English teacher said, "John, you're a good writer, and maybe you should think about writing for the high school newspaper." And I did, and here I am now. When I started at ABC in the 80s, they were looking for people who spoke Spanish to go cover the wars in Latin America. So the cynical people would say, well, they needed us to cover, the bang bang and then the dangerous stuff. And when that ended, because we're no longer covering any stories in Central America, they no longer needed us. So honestly, 20 years ago, there were more Latinos on network television reporting the news than we see now. I think we haven't made much progress. I don't see any trend that is hiring more and more faces on national television. Now, on the local front, on the local scene, and local stations across the country, it's amazing. And in San Antonio, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Houston, and Chicago, you see a lot of Latino faces, and I think that's great. But at the network level, I think we have a handful of us who are representing that segment of our population, and I think that's wrong, because it gives the impression that we're not the booming ethnic group. There are more Latinos now in this country than there are African Americans. You wouldn't know it, I think, by watching network television. In communities where you see a Gonzalez or a Sanchez or a Quiñones on television and it represents that audience, but television is a business also. The Latino population often is so proud to see one of their own on television that they might well tune in.
Amarildo Mario Ademaj es el presidente de la Asociación de Estudiantes de Medicina de Wisconsin y estudiante de tercer grado de la Escuela de Salud Pública de esta universidad. Mario está interesado en crear un proyecto que ayude a mejorar las condiciones de salud de grupos desprotegidos como los latinos. En esta segunda parte de nuestra conversación con él, nos habla de los retos que tendrían que vencerse para llevar a cabo este proyecto. Mario, thank you so much for joining us for this second part interview on this project of public health that you are so dedicated on taking on. Can you tell us about what has been your experience on looking through the options on how to help communities, especially minorities like Latinos, and what inspired you to create this page where you are trying to provide tips and some information for parents in how to help the family and how to help their kids?
So this page, where I kind of share some health information to the people in my life and the people in my communities, the inspiration from this page came from the fact that we as medical students, we have a great deal of knowledge, especially on public health and preventative care, but really nowhere to really implement kind of this education. That's why I thought, I got some great advice from my parents early on. They said, make sure you keep track of everything you learn throughout, medical school, because you'll never have another chance to go back to medical school to learn it. And so doing that, keeping those little journals of information about nutrition and exercise, made me think that the best population, at least that I can help, would be a population that I hope, trusts me and sees what I've been doing. And that's the population here in Milwaukee, where I grew up, the Albanian American community, Hispanic American community, both which I've worked closely with, and then population in Madison as well. So that kind of gave me some of that, that inspiration to see where the gap was to be filled, and then kind of do what I can to do my part in filling that gap.
Mario, you have mentioned that you have had close people to you that are within the Latino community. Latinos from all origins, from all countries, carry with themselves cultural tendencies, and some of those are barriers against, they call it Western medicine, and they totally believe in natural medicine or herbal medicine, and they absolutely don't trust the medical system in the United States, and they don't trust the insurances, and that had caused, from some points of view, lots of damage, in the health of these communities, of these minorities, including our Latino community, in illnesses that are increasing numbers, like diabetes or obesity. What is your point of view on that regards?
I think that's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because it is a very important issue, and with Latinos and other minorities as well. There's a couple problems. First of all, there is the lack of trust between the minority groups and then American medicine or Western medicine. Maybe the lack of trust is not because they don't trust the specific individuals taking care of them, but more the ideology behind treatments. I know where I come from in Albania, we have a pretty similar mentality as the Hispanic American population, or the people that I've worked with here in Milwaukee, that we'd like to try everything kind of natural or herbal before we actually have to do something more invasive. And I think that's a pretty common opinion. I don't think anyone would want to jump straight to anything invasive if they can cure it with this kind of other aspect of medicine, this more herbal, more natural care. But on the other hand, it is having some negative consequences. I know with some of the patients that I've been taking care of here in Milwaukee, they have a harder time kind of following up with their medications, and diabetes especially, with taking some of their insulin. And I think the challenge for me right now is trying to figure out why that is, what the barrier is. And I know it's a cultural reason, it might be an individual reason, but to me, I think it's just how individuals have been brought up. It seems to be more the older generations has that perspective, but I know that the younger generations and younger kids are trying to talk and even teach some of the older generations about, the power of the Western medicine per se. But on the other hand, I don't see anything wrong with non-traditional medicine. I'm actually a very big believer in non-traditional medicine myself. But I do think that you have to look at the whole picture, and you got to look at kind of benefits and risks of things. You can definitely try supplementing, treatment with herbal medicine, but I think if there's a very good option with evidence-based medicine, that this procedure will help you to go that route. To give you a specific example, my dad had pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed 7 years ago, and being, an immigrant family in the United States and in Milwaukee, we didn't really know, how to go about that. How do you manage someone who has pancreatic cancer? It was a brand new thing to us. We'd never been in a situation where a family member that close had a medical emergency. And so we kind of tackled it both ways, both medically and both kind of our traditional kind of Albanian perspective, where we worked on nutrition, we worked on diet and exercise and all those other things that people don't think are as impactful, but they are. And I think what's most remarkable about that is that the biggest lesson that I learned from that experience and being there with my dad throughout those 7 years, going to all of his appointments, getting to meet different doctors that took care of him, it was 50% medical and 50% mental. My dad, he took on the persona and perspective of the physician. If the physician was very positive and agreed with, my dad that we can try all these different things and stay positive, my dad was positive too, and he kept working at it. He kept working at his health. He tried some random Albanian teas, I remember, some different things we ordered from Albania, some natural kind of roots and grasses and vegetables. We tried everything, but we were still taking the chemotherapy. My dad was still getting chemotherapy every week. So I think it was a combination. And at the time of diagnosis, my dad was given 6 months to live, and that was 7 years ago because it was a late-stage pancreatic cancer. My dad, unfortunately, did pass away last year, but he made it 7 years, and I credit 50% to the actual medical care and as phenomenal physicians, but then 50% to kind of this more spiritual care that we have as Albanians, as minorities, as the Hispanic American community has as well, which I believe that you can work those together and have great care. Mario, thank you very much for being with us, and we hope to follow up in this journey that you are, focusing and where you are trying to serve communities. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything. Thanks for having me over here.
Y al final de un programa más de Adelante, por favor déjenos saber sus comentarios en nuestro teléfono 297-7544 o escríbanos a nuestra dirección de correo electrónico en adelante@matc.edu y visítenos en nuestro sitio del internet en mptv.org y en Facebook. Sintonícenos en Milwaukee Public Television, canales 10.1 y 36.2 todos los martes a las 6:30 de la tarde y en canal 36.1 los miércoles a las 12:30 de la medianoche y los domingos a las 6 de la tarde. Y en MPTV VM 10.3 los viernes a las 6 y 6:30 de la tarde y los domingos a las 8 de la mañana. Soy Patricia Gomez, gracias por acompañarnos.